Good afternoon, everybody. Today is Thursday, May 30th, 2019, and it is just right after 1 p.m. Today's meeting is the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. And before we get going here, I would ask everybody to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, well, with that, we'll start off on agenda number one with our roll call today.
Marshall McBride,
Present.
Nick Morano,
Here.
Denny Dodson,
Here.
Mike Santos,
Here.
Stan Jones.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 2 for possible action. This is approval of today's agenda. Elaine, do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay, with that, I'll open up for any discussion on the agenda today from the commissioners. Do we have any comment from the public today? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda today.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move on to agenda number 3, public comment on, again, non-agendized items. And not only on this item, but throughout the meeting. And for those that would like to speak, if they could come up to the microphone there and state your name, that'd be great. Do we have any public comment today? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda number 4 for possible action. Approval of the meeting minutes for March 28th, 2019.
I move to approve the minutes for 28 March 19.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Elaine, there was no changes, right?
No, we just had a couple of little wordsmithing, but you have those copies.
Right.
And also, just for explanation, we did not hold a meeting in April, so we do not have April meetings attached.
Yep, good noted. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move on. Move on to agenda number 5 for discussion of possible action, a final review and approval of the fiscal year 2020 budget for the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway. Elaine, it's all yours.
Okay, we'll go ahead and have Hugh Gallagher present the budget for final approval.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hugh Gallagher for the record, Story County Comptroller. You have before you the submission before the Department of Taxation on the final budget for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2020. There has been a few changes from the tentative budget. The amounts of revenue and expenditures will remain the same. There are just a couple of items of reclassification. If you will look on page 7 of Schedule F1, we decreased the marketing budget, the tentative budget, from $661,425 to $141,000. We increased the operating agreements from $245,000 to $765,000 to take into consideration the train operating agreements, which were, I think, erroneously put into marketing for the tentative. We just pulled that out, put it in the correct category for the final. And then repairs and maintenance of $551,000, we reduced that to $63,200. And then services and supplies, we decreased from the original, or there was no original budget, but we increased that to $477,250. All of those are noted in the last 3 pages of your packet, which is an Excel spreadsheet which took the original budget that was presented to you, and it broke it out by line item so you can take a look at those items. And that's pretty much the only changes that we have had in the document, Mr. Chairman.
Hugh, if you don't mind, I can explain a little bit as well, and that is, so what Hugh's referring to is we didn't increase or decrease those certain categories or those line items. They were just in the wrong line. When we lined them up, Hugh and I met because the numbers just didn't jive with what we had originally put out there, and sure enough, that was the only problem, was that they were bulked into the wrong category on this particular document, not on our budget, which you originally approved.
Do we have any questions from the commissioners? Do we have any questions from the public? No? Okay. It looks pretty straightforward. I don't have any questions either, so I guess we're going to make this pretty easy. I'll entertain a motion if that's, get one of the commissioners to put one out there.
Okay, you want me to try a motion here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, thank you there.
So I move to approve the FY 2020 budget for the Nevada Commission for the reconstruction of the V&T Railway as published.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
With that, all the commissioners that are in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. We'll move on. And this would be on agenda number 6 for discussion only, financial report. So we can stay with you. Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Elaine?
Okay, the board, as you're aware, we like to give you our current up-to-date figures for the fiscal year, and we're doing really well. Now, this, the document that you should be looking at for this report, it's the profit and loss by class, and it should be right there in front of you, along with a shorter document that demonstrates what we've used for the parking lot improvements and what we have remaining. So this is what we do in-house. This is basically done on QuickBooks and very detailed. Right now, what we're looking at, commissioners, is we are on track. We're going to meet our goals for revenue for 2019 as they were budgeted, and we're staying within our expenses. And at this point, we're at a net of $159,567, and I don't foresee many more big expenses coming out of this fiscal year, being that we only have, well, June we have 1 month left, and we have more tickets to be sold for the month of June. So looking at the figures, nothing really stands out. It just looks like we were able to stay within the guidelines presented to us early last year, and revenue caught up and did indeed. You guys budgeted well, because I think we're going to hit our mark and then some.
Great. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? Wow, quite a rowdy bunch today. No, I think I may say, Elaine, is again, I know I've already said this before, but this is such a night and day budget to where we were a couple years ago. You've done a great job, you and the staff. I really have, making it clean. I know it's converting it to one budget, working with Hugh and taxation, and as we go forward, I assume it'll even be more clear. So, but it's been great. Okay, any no questions or comments?
I think Mr. Chairman, I just think I have one question for Elaine. Since June will be the last month in this fiscal year, are there any expenses that you anticipate that will come in this month that will go ahead and skew the ending numbers on the balance sheet?
No, in fact, our largest expenses we have behind us, and that includes even our new website. The income that we can project is approximately another $40,000 to $50,000. I do not see any large items. Thanks to the contributions from the county and CVA, we were able to finish our capital outlay projects and then some, and still end up, we're going to be ahead of what we projected as far as our income. Once we collect our grant income, reimbursements, and our additional ticket sales, we're good.
Very good, thank you.
And we have $6,000 left to paint, according to this, according to our accounting for the parking lot improvements. And we'd like to thank Ken Dorr for this. He was able to keep the project tight, and we ended up with some additional revenue so that we can paint the ticket office and the restrooms this year.
Great. Elaine, when is the estimated time, or maybe Mr. Gallagher can answer this, for our audited, once we finish in June, typically is it October-ish for the numbers to be audited for this year we're currently in?
Mr. Chairman, Hugh Gallagher for Story County Comptroller. We've got a couple of things we need to do. At your next meeting, you will be asked if there is a necessity to augment certain things as to compare to the budget. We will give you a couple of documents and maybe some resolutions to do that. We haven't looked at that yet. Financial statements are usually should be done by November 30th. Obviously, they weren't by this year. We had a few hiccups, and then I got called before the local government finance committee to explain what happened with that. It was nothing irregular or criminal, but it was something we didn't get the statements out correctly. This will not happen this year. I encourage you to retain. I think we have retained already Vanessa Davis, because they do a great job of what they're doing she's been doing it for the last couple of years. Does a good job. Couldn't find records last year. She'll be able to find them this year. So we should be good.
Great, thank you. The reason I asked, honestly, Elaine, you forgot to answer one item that when Mr. McBride asked you the question about if there's any extra expenses left. With the audited number, I believe in terms of your agreement, we'll be able to pay you a nice little bonus
Yes, I did forget
for being
that one.
positive.
Thank you for the reminder.
Yeah, see, I was thinking about that.
Yeah, I haven't thought of that.
Yep,
Thanks, Denny.
yep, you're welcome. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 7. This is for discussion and possible action, nomination and election of the V&T Railway Commission fiscal year 2020 through 2022, chairman, vice chairman, and secretary treasurer. And I think down below there, as per the Nevada Commission for the Reconstruction of the V&T Railway Act of 93, the commission shall elect a chair, a vice chair, secretary, and treasurer from amongst its members. The secretary and the treasurer may be one person. The terms of the officers expire on July 1st of each odd-numbered year, so the terms would be for 2 years. With that, open it up for discussion to the members here. Maybe I'll start. I think, in my mind, I've seen, and I know in Story County, I can speak a little bit, Marshall can speak for Story County, we've seen a tremendous change for the positive with this organization that's, I think, really brought the region together. And it wasn't easy, and we ruffled some feathers doing it. But I think that the future is very bright for this organization, and I think that it's appropriate to see a little change once in a while. Have a different perspective, a different seat. We all jump in and wear different hats. I've been fortunate to be the chairman for the last almost 2 years, and with that, I'd like to see that change a little bit and us rotate it out so we all get a different feel, a different look at what's available, what's to do out there with the V&T and how we can improve it. Obviously, I still want to be involved with the marketing side. I need to do a better job, but I'm open for discussion on others that want to take the gavel. Thoughts?
With that being said, I'd like to make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Stan Jones for the upcoming fiscal year 2020 to 2022 for chairman.
I'd like to second your motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
You bet. Okay, well, then now let's talk about vice chair. What we'd like to do there. Anybody got some thoughts?
Okay, I
Stan,
guess-
who do you want on your right hands, on your right
And
side?
as the incoming chair, I would defer to you. But as the current vice chair, I can say this has been a very difficult job. But after 2 years, I'm very happy to have someone else roll into it. I'm kidding. But I think to follow what Denny has said, I think it'd be good to kind of rotate these around. It's not a very difficult job, but I think it'd be good.
No, I agree, and I think one should be from Story and one from Carson. And that, with that respect, I would nominate Marshall to be vice chair.
I don't think you got the memo, Stan.
I heard you loud and clear.
I will second that.
Well, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other nominations? Don't have to stay at one. You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay. With that, then, no other nominations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries on that. And then let's go with the final one here. We can look at this at two different ways. We can do a secretary and a treasurer, or we can do just a treasurer, per NRS, apparently. Thoughts, conversation? I know we have I guess might be a question for Mike. Being as we have, does it have to be somebody on the board? Can we have someone else be the secretary? It does, okay.
I would suggest,
It says, Jenny, front, that you make these election of officers from the members.
Okay.
So
Got it. Well, in discussions with Mike earlier, I know you were kind of only been in that position just a few months with the changeover with Joel. I'd make a motion as a chair that you would continue that as secretary treasurer.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. With that, I didn't ask any public comment, but on any of the three of those selections, sorry about that, but got ahead of myself. If there is any public comment today on that? Hearing none, then we'll move on to agenda number 8. For discussion only, discuss the need for a rail usage policy covering maintenance and liability concerns.
Okay, line item 8 was actually an item that came up that we do need to address, considering that we do have other people that use our rail. And in the past, there has been policies in place, or at least there was an agreement that we can use as a template or we can use to change. I had lunch with Mike Rowe this afternoon and to ask him a little bit about what they had done in the past. And so I'd like to have him speak on that, and also Ken Dorr, because the two of them are, they're the history of this organization, and they can help, at least help us understand what has been the policies of the past.
the recent past policy, it's been non-existent. Years ago, before the agreement with Tom to run the trains, there was a track use agreement that spelled out various things that the then commission required of anybody that was using the track, and that primarily was Tom. But that was before the train operation agreement was in place. What I suggested to Elaine at lunch is that I perhaps circulate that old agreement on track use, and you could see what was done in the past, and it may help generate thoughts on what you want to see as far as the policy is concerned. One thing that was lacking was insurance by people that were using the track. which caused me a great deal of concern at the time. So that was corrected. We have, of course, Tom uses it, but we also have the rail car people use the track. And Elaine's working on a project with the bikes, and we should probably have a policy in place to deal with how and when and what kind of requirements are to be met. So I can circulate a copy of that electronically to you guys so you can just review it, that old agreement, and it'll give you a start on what you might want to see as a policy.
Mike. Yeah, and the immediate interest is Ken Werg, who runs I forget the West Coast Railroaders Group, I think. They have a high rail group, a motor car group, and they do excursions and they make donations to Make-A-Wish. It's a great organization. And they have a lot of professionals that are current active railroad employees with the Union Pacific that are involved, so they know what they're doing. The problem was that it's sort of been a loose handshake agreement, I think, for the last couple of excursions, and they have an excursion scheduled for, I think it's June 15th. And what kind of an agreement do they have to use our track, as well as Tom's? And that's, of course, between Tom and them on his portion of the track. But the commission's track, I don't think there's an agreement in place. I think Mike just said that. So what do we do on that? The biggest concern I have also has been from an insurance and liability. I think they're more than capable of operating safely because they do this, they get paid for it, really, so a lot of them. But, and then the other thing was that, there's going to be a little bit of time that Mike's going to have and Elaine's going to have and whatnot. Should we be charging for at least a nominal fee to cover some of our expenses? And the fact is, we're looking for every dollar. So those are my two thoughts, is that agreement in place so that Elaine has some information. Here's your use agreement, and make sure you give us a copy of your insurance, and this is what we're going to charge you. Those are my thoughts for consideration by the board. So,
Ken, did you say there's something being planned for the 15th of this June?
that's correct.
What is it?
It's a motor car excursion.
From here to Virginia City?
I'm not sure exactly where they're planning to originate and end their trip, but they will be using the commission's track for that excursion. And again, with no agreement in place, it would be nice to. And I know these folks, Ken's organization, they have insurance, so I don't think that's a big issue. But still, the point is that they really need to go through, quite frankly, they need to go through Elaine to get permission to use our facility, is my opinion.
I agree. How are we going to get this agreement? And I think we need an agreement, and I think there ought to be a fee too, for use of the track. So how are we going to do this between now and the 15th?
Well, we can get it done, after this meeting, of course, based on your decision. If you decide to tell me to please, you assign me to contact the group and get an agreement before they can use it, of course we will. It's also a day that we run our regular train. So those are the type of things that, when somebody wants to use our rail, if we have a set up policy, I can let people know, what the criteria is going to be as per the commission.
Currently, the way, for example, when Gabe wants to take his high rail on the track, or we have some other equipment to utilize the track, and the policy is that and this is, I believe, in the operating agreement, policy is that individual gets a track use permit from Tom being the dispatcher. And so Tom is actually the one that's in charge of operations on that track on a day-to-day basis. That's different from the use agreement. But from a safety standpoint, who can be on the track during what hours and from what location to the starting location to end location, that's up to the approval of the dispatcher, i.e. Tom Gray.
So Mike, with this insurance, I mean, we need, obviously they need liability insurance for accident, but is there usually some type of insurance to, if there's any damage to our equipment, track or otherwise?
The old agreement had both. We had the commission named as an additional insured under the policy. And then we had a provision in that agreement for repair and maintenance of the track. So I'm happy to, told Elaine I would email that to her and she can then email it to you guys and you can see at least where the old commission was with the issue. And then give us some direction as to what you'd like to see.
I think I like that. I like to see it. I'm not sure, know that, I think I've read through it before, but I don't remember all the details. I'd like to refresh myself with it and then make recommendations.
Elaine, I don't know if have you had discussions with Ken regarding this, Ken Word?
No, not until after this meeting.
Yeah, because they do this on a number of different railroads, and for perhaps, depending on the commission's pleasure on this, they probably have a template set up. I know they have insurance, and maybe we can work with them to get an interim agreement for this this initial application, because we wouldn't want to shut them down, because it's a great operation, and see if that'll work for us. And then maybe if the board would authorize, we can look at that on a staff basis to think we're comfortable with that for this interim agreement, and then work on something a little bit more formal for future utilization.
Hey, Mike and Ken, I have a question for you guys, and you guys can help me out with this, hopefully, is when they want to use our track, it seems to me that, and I don't know if we do this on a per weekend, per day, per year, whatever, but they sign, the agreement or a contract, and they say on these days, and they coordinate this through Elaine, on these days, June 15th, 16th, whatever, we'll be using this track. And then we have their insurance on file, we have everything we need legally to make sure everything's covered, but that we have that contract agreement, whatever it is, with the dates on it, and they sign it, and we coordinate that with Tom and Elaine and all that, so, that it's smooth that way. And I don't know if that's a good way to do it, but it seems to me that would be a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, the areas that I'm mainly concerned about are the adequacy of the insurance and the fact that we get a certificate naming the commission as an additional insured. And the other provision that was pretty strong in that agreement, and it carried forward into the operation agreement that Tom has today, is that the liability indemnity provision where they hold the commission harmless from any event that occurs while they use the track. And that their insurance would be the primary insurance, and any that we have with the pool is going to be secondary to their coverages.
And I'd really like to see it, I want it to be easy for them. I want people to use our track. I want them to see what we have to offer. We have a beautiful thing out there, and so I would encourage that, and make it as easy as we can, but still, have everything covered, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed.
I would propose that the commission let Mike and Elaine develop an interim agreement for this event and then put this on for an agenda item for the future and get this resolved. But to handle this one event, let them do it.
Yeah, I think it's at the discretion or within the general manager's ability to put that together and bring it back something formal to the commission that we can vote on, agendize it properly. And I don't see an issue with that at all. It's just doing business.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with incoming Chairman Jones with perhaps some type of fee attached to the agreement as well. Not to make it punitive to the point to where someone wouldn't want to use the tracks, because we do want to encourage people to come up here, spend the night, and spend money in the communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that being said, I can check with other rail providers and see what they charge.
Great. Any public comment on this item?
Stephen Lincoln. I think it's important to, when you're talking about the insurance, that you have loss of use, especially if they're using it on the same day that the train's running, let's say they get up there and their car breaks down and you can't get the people back from Virginia City. So something like that, I believe, should be covered in there too, so you guys don't lose any revenue when their motor car breaks down in the middle of the track.
And there could even be some challenges to running other alternative uses on the track that we're using on a particular day. I know that in southern Nevada, they were being questioned as to the rail bikes being on the same exact track as the engine, their regular rides. We wouldn't have that situation as we have the Carson City Canyon trackage that we do not use, but the regular ride, of course, goes up to Virginia City. But in southern Nevada, there was question that they were both being used on the same day. So I'll check into that as well, as far as the Federal Railroad Association, the guidelines that they require.
Basically, it comes down to is making sure that we keep the motor car operation separate from the train operation. And really, that's a matter of, okay, a specific authority, you have the track for this amount of time from point A to point B. That can be supplemented as necessary with flagging. You could put, arrange for positive flagging. If for some reason one of their cars breaks down, all the trained personnel on Tom's equipment knows what a red flag is, basically.
Okay.
And so that's not, I don't visualize a difficulty with that. As long as everybody knows what's going on and there's a procedure for, yes, we're not done with this track yet. And typically, a lot of cases, you'll have a reporting in situation on a permit. In other words, you have the track from 4 hours from this location to this location, and you have to report. In other words, unless that report is received, trains aren't released. So I don't really visualize a huge safety issue.
Anything else? No? Okay, I think we'll move on to the next item, but before we do, I think I'll make a note for the record that Commissioner Morano had an emergency, had to leave, so just for the record, he won't be returning. Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 9 for discussion only, marketing update and introduction of the V&T Railway new website with Argentum partners. Molly.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Molly Ellery with Argentum Partners. So to start off, before we jump into the agenda, we wanted to show you guys the new website. It is a little skewed on this version, so I promise it fits better if you look at it like on your computer. And I don't know if some of the things are going to work because anyways. So this part right here is, it's a video. We can update this at any time as we get new assets. One of the first things we wanted to do was when you logged on, or when you went to the website, you saw the ticket options that we have. As you can see, this is all animated back here for just an extra feel, but it goes through the different tickets and events that we have available right now. And if you click on any of these things, it automatically takes you to Fair Harbor's screen so that we are capturing buyers immediately. Another thing you'll see is as we scroll down, this screen or this slider up top moves with you so that the buy tickets button is always available. We made the history page readily available because we do have so many enthusiasts of the train. And then we have a fun gallery down here that can be updated at any point in time with graphics. And then one thing we didn't have in the old website was a page that housed all of our train rides. Each train ride had its own page. So as you can see here, this shows all of our train rides. And then for anything that we do that's special, we have a special events train so that we didn't take up too much space here. And then just to demonstrate what one of these will look like, as you can see here, we have a description of the route. Each train, we show the schedule as well as the highlights on what you're going to see on that excursion. And we have a small gallery of those different trains and events. We also built in a calendar so because our train is a full day experience and we want people to book their vacation around it. So we wanted to be sure that they knew what was going on in Carson City and Virginia City since that's where they're going. So as you can see, if you go to, if it populates in June, We incorporated different events that are happening in the towns as well as when our trains are running, and we have different little logos. And this is very easy to update as events change. This group tab, it's just a dedicated page for any groups larger than 15 or 20. And it just makes it really easy for them to book and send information straight to Elaine, Fair Harbor, or any other entity that would need that info. The Explore page, again, as we mentioned, we want this to be an all-inclusive experience. So this links people directly to the visitors authorities for Carson City, Virginia City, and Reno, in case they're looking to make their stay longer so that they can look at different events happening around the region. The About tab we thought was very important. We built it out quite a bit. So as you go through here, we have our FAQ. We have directions on how to get to the Eastgate Depot with a map. This is where that history page from the homepage sits. We have the different equipment that we use. We have a spot to showcase the articles that we've been featured in, which we didn't have previously. Different reviews that have been made. And then per the discussion we had at the last board meeting, we are now housing all V&T commission meetings on our website. So when you go to this page, you will see, and now with elections, we will get this updated, but it shows a history of the commission, the current commissioners and their stats, their position, all of the contractors, and then right here is where you'll see all of the meeting agendas to make sure it's all combined. And then lastly, we have a fun gallery that can be updated with photos, videos, anything that we want, really. It's really easy to use. Elaine, Tiffany, myself all have access to it, so it's very user-friendly. But that is our beautiful, fantastic new website.
Great job. It's beautiful. It really is. And yeah, thanks for adding that commission meeting minutes on there, that page. That'll be helpful and less confusing for people, for sure.
Agreed.
One thing I was looking for, I was thinking about too, as you were going through these, is a media page.
As in a media contact or
Yeah,
where we would house
contact,
media?
content, kind of a request to ride, a request for photos, content, that kind of stuff.
So on the, I believe on the contact page, which we have, nope, not on the contact page. So we do have a dedicated contact page where they can reach out. These would go straight to Elaine. But in the About section on the V&T Commission, my contact info is listed under contractors. But we can put that under articles.
But like your,
And at
your
the bottom of the
press releases, all that kind of stuff on there, blogs or whatever you got, yeah.
Yep, so all of that would be housed on the articles page. We haven't had a chance to get all of that content up because we wanted the website live. But all of that would be housed there, and then I can put my contact info a little more easy to find.
No, it's great. It is sharp, it's clean, and it's easy to get around, so.
And I'm sorry, it is glitchy on here, so please look at it on your computer. It's much cleaner.
Is that a Mac thing?
I think it's just because it's translating. It distorts the pixels on my
Yeah,
computer.
sometimes it does that. Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, in addition to the minutes, do you also have the ability, or did you already plan on putting the future agendas on the website as well?
Correct. So when you look at the V&T Commission page at the bottom, so for example, here's our March 28th meeting. We have a proof of posting, we have the meeting agenda and notes.
Awesome.
And anything else can be added to those slides, and we can create new ones as meetings come about.
Great, thank you.
Yes, sir? Okay. And then sliding along.
Before you
Yes.
bounce. Before Molly goes on, it's Monday that Tiffany and I are going to have training on the website. So we will be able to go in and change and modify the website. And that's something that we hadn't had in the past. So if there was something that we needed changed, we were waiting for somebody from France to make the change. And it was a matter of 2 to 3 days. Now it's a matter of minutes. So I just wanted you all to know that we can directly change and modify the website.
Anything else on the website before I head over? Very good. I'm glad you guys are happy with it. It was definitely a passion project. We're all really proud of it.
Yep.
Okay. So then all of you have a copy of this. I will not go through it in detail, just to not belabor anything. But this dates back to the beginning of April, since we didn't have an April meeting. So obviously our first big event was Mother's Day. That train was completely and totally sold out. And per Elaine, I'm very proud of this. We could have had a fourth passenger car with how many people we had. Some of the perks, we did have a radio remote that we were able to harness through the radio buy that we placed that helped drive tickets to future events. We had a myriad of media that we earned, both in print, radio, and in television coverage. And then the thing that we are very happy about now that we have our feet under us this season and we stopped the bleeding from previous season and we're on top of everything, we are able to reach out to regional and national bloggers and influencers. And we had one come out for Mother's Day, and she wrote a fantastic blog post. She titled it 48 Hours in Carson City. I have it pulled up here to preview really quick. It is largely pictures, which we think is great because it really shows the beauty of what we have. We did partner with both Carson City and Virginia City to make this happen, which is something we will do in the future. So she stayed at Gold Dust West. Obviously, she came to VNT. When she was there, she posted on social media, and she was in a Facebook Live that we did to give us some more oomph for those events. Lots of great pictures for VNT. Obviously, up at Virginia City, took some great pictures there. She went to the State Museum and ate at one of the new restaurants in Carson. All of these things are tagged and linked to their websites. So far, as you can see here, this post has been shared on Facebook over 215 times. And I reached out to her, and she's had over 300 page visits to this specific story just in the 2.5 weeks that the story's been up. And then as we move into our season kickoff, as you all know from the picture that Elaine sent, Saturday was completely sold out with 3 passenger cars. Sunday, to our knowledge, was not sold out, but we do feel that that was largely related to weather, unfortunately. We didn't get a lot of the walk-ups we expected, but we did get some great coverage. And then Elaine and I both worked with a reporter from the LA Times who did a piece talking about a train road trip through California and Nevada. The picture that you see right here is from Google. So when you find the story, our reenactors are featured in the story. And the first thing that comes up is talking about the VNT Railway Commission. So we do have a very prominent role in that story.
Molly, just to jump in.
Yes.
We were sold out on Sunday.
Oh,
I think
well, that's even better.
our conversation was prior. It was like on a Thursday or Friday. We were sold out both days.
I scratch everything I just said. We sold out completely. Perfect. That makes me really happy. And then as we move through, we have started a Polar Express pre-sale with some of the previous conversations we had about Thursday sales. We sent out an e-blast on the 23rd, and from that, one of the most notable things we had a Polar Express purchase for over $2,000 that came immediately after the e-blast went out. And we're posting it on social media, and we are going to be doing a Christmas in July event that will be strictly social media and earned media, so it doesn't require any resources from anyone. But it's just continuing to say tickets are on sale right now. You save, quote unquote, $10 if you purchase Thursday tickets, just to promote that and make sure no one thinks we're sold out too early into the season. Obviously, our next big event is Toast of the Canyon. Something that we are doing differently this year is we are partnering with regional and local wineries, distilleries, and breweries. So the first ones that we have been talking with and have queued up is Crystal Basin. It's an El Dorado County brewery. One of our drive markets right now is Northern California. So we think with the social following and media presence that they have, they'll help drive a good audience to us. We're also talking to Shoe Tree Brewing here in Carson. They're incredibly interested, and we'll be chatting with Elaine. And then Frey Ranch Estate Distillery. And then as those book out, we'll continue scheduling some more. We have all of our paid assets placed and ready to go. And then you will all see a press release that goes out Monday, June 3rd. If any of you aren't getting those releases, please let me know. You're on the list, but I want to make sure the emails are correct. And then lastly, we just wanted to go over where some of our marketing placements are. We're in a myriad of different print and digital. We run our digital ads, and then we have a radio buy placed with cable and KKOH. But if that does not prove to yield the response that we expect it to, we are looking at the X and some other stations that have proven successful in the past for us. But with the radio buys we place, we do get a lot of add-on perks like e-blast to their databases or radio remotes. And then lastly, just these are the basic numbers from April and May, talking about how many people we reached and what the click-through to purchase tickets or look at the website was. And then the last couple of things to discuss, the character campaign is going to be slightly modified because we do have several big events happening this year. So we're not rolling it out in its entirety this year, but we are going to be reviving our assets with the character campaign. So brand new characters to make brand new assets for Toast to the Canyon and the 150th, to make way for a larger campaign next year that coincides with the 150th. And then, again, since we have our feet under us, we're rolling out a social media plan that will include V&T facts to help distinguish us from other trains in the area, highlighting you gentlemen. So I will be reaching out to you just to learn a little bit about you, as well as everyone else that works on the project, our trains, and then other things as well. So it's not the same old, same old. And then, very lastly, we did just want to show some of the creative that we've done. I will go through this very quickly, but it's in color and pretty. So this just shows Mother's Day and our season kickoff. But these are the things that we place in print and digital, as well as these are the e-blasts that we've designed. You'll see that they're very similar, but they do have different feels to them. And then I didn't know if I'd be able to show the website, so there are screenshots of the different website pages as well. And if you have any questions, I am able to take them.
Commissioners, questions? Anything? I just have a couple.
Yes, sir.
I forgot what one of them was. Now I know the other one. But, no, the Polar Express.
Yes.
In regards to the marketing campaign for that, and we had some issues. We talked about doing a video, talked about doing some things, but there's some franchise rights and different things. Have we got any clarification on what we can do with that?
We've gotten absolutely none, and we've reached out several times and haven't heard back from them. So what we're going to do is just revive the current assets that we have. We're going to take with our photo shoot that's going to be upcoming, we're going to take new pictures of Santa and Hero Boy, kind of like ushering passengers onto the train with tickets and cookies and hot chocolate. And then try to chalk out a little bit of the budget later into the year if we do get something. But unfortunately, we're kind of roadblocked, so.
Got it, okay. Yep, I understand. That's all I had. Yep, okay. Any comments or questions from the public? Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 10, a discussion of possible action, the Engine 18 overhaul report. And I see Mr. Gray back there. Tom, would you mind coming up, give us an update on the 18?
Tom Gray, V&T Railroad, for the record. Engine 18 update. Well, we're putting in the superheater header today. That was a big milestone, and see if it seals up. So we're working on the front end. Luke's down here with Dano, so we have some extra help, and he put the 18 together 15 years ago, so that's good. He'll be here for a few more days. The 18 is just a small thing to keep, the whole trains running. We still have all the other work to do, the track work, the tunnels, the crossings have taken a lot of time this last few weeks, getting them back in service. The equipment, but the 18's progressing along, so I felt pretty encouraged. This is the second time he's been down in the last couple months, so I felt encouraged about it. And then we're kind of getting freed up in the shop with the 29 going now, and the daily operations going. So another month we'll be rocking and rolling, I think.
That's great. And then as you guys finished
Not
up,
with the 18, but with
call you out on that one.
productivity.
Yeah, and then the tunnel, Tom, you guys finished up the tunnel work you had done?
Yeah, we did a lot of the major work already. We haven't finished it, but, so it's certainly safe and suitable to use. And the crossings are the big thing too. We just still working on those yesterday. We have to do, we took both of them out of service. We put new rail in Gold Hill, so we had to break all the bonding wires. And then once the crossing's out of service for a month, you have to put it back into service. You have to do a 10-year inspection, so you have to pull all the wires apart and Maker test them. So we did that for both F Street, and then the new signal light that's facing towards the events arena. We put that in, so we got that in service now. Then the main thing is the track structure, putting ties in. We're still putting a lot of ties in. And then The diesels are pretty good shape, you know, and then the passenger coaches. So, yeah, we're just, all the little bugs are being worked out.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I was pretty impressed, Tom, when you took us on our tour. Elaine and Marshall and I went up and Tom showed us the inner workings of an engine that I didn't realize existed. I was very impressed. I really was.
A lot of work on those.
Yeah, there is. I'm just waiting for it to get back online.
You know, 2 years ago, we lapped in all those rings, you know, and that took us a month to lap in all these rings that we're just using now. We're taking them out of the toolbox and putting them in and trying to seal everything up. So it's a process, and this is our 43rd year of continuous operation, so. All right, thanks.
Awesome, great, thank you, Tom, appreciate it. Okay, with that, we'll move on to agenda number 11 for discussion only. This will be the general manager's report. Elaine?
I just wanted to report, with our new ticketing site, we're able to pull up a lot more detail as far as our ticket sales go. And so we have our current fiscal year, just year to date, we've sold over $68,000 in tickets. And that's good meaning 68,000 for May and June. And then starting our next fiscal year for 2020, we're at $46,000, but $36,000 of that is for the Polar Express. So again, we did throw out some e-blasts. The VIP regulars all know that it's time to get their tickets again. And the day that Molly and her team let loose of that e-blast, it was like a horse race. It was a lot of fun to watch the phone light up with all the ticket sales. But we're at 36,000 already for Polar Express. Again, looking very healthy for this year, for the rest of this fiscal year. And lastly, you all received an email, and we were made aware that Carson City Chamber of Commerce has selected the Polar Express the best annual event for 2019. And we will be receiving an award on June 13th, and I sent you all the information, and so I'll be asking you again to confirm your attendance, like the board and the staff that participated in the Polar Express, to go and be part of that, to be recognized. But it's an honor to be the best annual event through Carson City Chamber of Commerce for 2019.
Cool. I had a question for you, and it might swing back to Molly a little bit. On the train schedule that's posted on the website, that's a separate plug-in. I learned a little bit about websites because we did ours. Is there a way, is that downloadable to a calendar? Do we know if that allows us to do that or not?
It's not. So the way that the website is set up, there we go. I'll show you guys. But under each one of the different routes that we have posted is where the schedule lives for those events, as well as when you click to buy tickets, Fair Harbor has that. We can add something to the website that just has a really basic Word document, but otherwise.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that. I was, for myself, I was just thinking about making sure that like the event trains that come up, or camel races or whatever, that we're coordinating. I'm thinking about putting it on my calendar, and I know some other calendars we can do that. We can just download events.
Like to an Outlook or Google.
Exactly.
I can talk with my team and see if that's an easy plug-in to add. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I can't speak to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to spend any money on that, please. That's just it's a nice to have. So for someone that's looking at the calendar all the time,
Definitely.
the casual visitor, probably not worth the money. So, yeah, that's good. Any questions for Elaine? No? Okay.
Hey, Denny,
Yes.
could I just add that I've been watching over the phones quite a bit these days and passing them between Tina Claypack and myself. And I've found that, especially for our regular season, we're going to hang on to the phones. And we answer them 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Every day, and then, of course, answer them right away the next day if we do get some late calls. And the reason for that is we don't want to miss any opportunities. And we are selling our one-way tickets now and making that one of our offers. and it's working, but it's that personal touch and making sure that if we get a phone call, that it ends with a ticket sell. And that's important. Now, Polar Express sells itself. It's very well known, and the policies and the basics are just the same. So we'll turn it over to the new ticketing service or the call center for the Polar Express. But right now, this season, we are manning the phones, and we're doing that on purpose because we do not want to miss a sale.
Very good. Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 12 for discussion only, the engineers report.
Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple things. Elaine indicated the Eastgate Station Site Improvement Project is complete now. As you'll recall from a couple of meetings back, the original contract amount awarded was $189,000 on that project and change by virtue of a value engineering proposal substituting slurry seal instead of the chip seal on the actual surface treatment. That final contract amount came out to just under $174,000. So it was about $15,000 less than originally anticipated, and none of the contingency was used. And that also includes the fact that we added in a sanitary sewer disposal line and a water service to get taken care of before we covered over those items. So that worked out pretty positively. I have filed, or it's in the process, it will be published on Saturday. There's a formal notice of completion will appear in the Nevada appeal. And basically that is, we're done with the project. Anybody has any claims against contractor, they have to get a hold of us before we make a final payment. And there's only a small amount. We have not paid the contractor at this point, I believe, that we're at. So that came out pretty decent. Pretty much now into the normal routine inspection and maintenance routine that Gabe is going to be performing. One notable item that he's going to have, we're going to try to do some resurfacing on the Overman embankment, take care of some settlement, a lot of which that's always going to be settling, that embankment. We knew that, but the surface is not very good. There's a slow order on that track. Probably going to need some more ballast to take care of that. Which we need to coordinate, probably purchasing some additional ballast, which I'll have to get with you on that. And then of course with Tom, who, will deliver the ballast in his ballast car when we're ready for that. So I'd like to try to get some of that done before it gets too hot. One upcoming item, which is, would actually be a capital improvement, is something to be considered next fall, is replacement or actually installation of a culvert below Eastgate, between Eastgate and Eureka, and that's right at the bottom of that canyon. And we didn't really realize there was a culvert in there until 2007 when the storm event found the old culvert, and we had some settlement in the embankment, which is okay at this point. We're fine unless we get another big storm, but ultimately we need a culvert in that location. And that's going to be a pretty extensive project. And we'll be looking at that later on and obviously see where the commission's budget is and if that's something we can do, and we'll try to do. But we'll talk about that later on when we find some more details. Tom and myself have talked back and forth. We're trying to get an ultrasonic rail inspection done, and I've contacted two firms. And what that involves is, it's not new technology, but they have a high rail vehicle that comes down the track, and they do an ultrasonic inspection of the rail to try to determine if there's any defects in that rail, which could possibly lead to a broken rail when those defects were not something you'd pick up on the surface. We're not actually required to do ultrasonic rail inspections, unlike a short line railroad. I think it's 2 years, short line. Mainline class ones have to do it once a year at least. But we pretty much established the policy we wanted to do about every 4 years. And my thinking is if we can save one derailment or one broken rail that could possibly cause a derailment, it's probably worthwhile going through that. In both firms, I'm not too crazy about their mobilization costs, but I need to follow up on that and see where we're at. And the way it will work is that Tom will do his track and we'll do ours under the same trip, hopefully to save some mobilization costs. And then we pay for the work done on the commission's track. Tom pays for the commission work that's done over the V&T track. It's, again, not new technology. I think it was developed in the 1920s or 30s, but Broken rail is not a good thing under traffic. US 50 bridge, we're getting at least one cost estimate to do some painting repairs, which has been basically a little clean up some rust areas and miscellaneous minor items. NDOT also has they do a bridge inspection on all the structures over the highway, on the highway system every 2 years. We're required to do it once a year, but we're trying to coordinate their inspection with Kent Hanford, who does our inspections for us and also coordinates the maintenance on that bridge. And Kent's going to try to join them. Whether they'll allow him in the lift truck or not, probably not, but he'll be on the ground talking to those folks on the 10th of June. And they're going to take care of that. We have done a little maintenance on that bridge already, but we have some painting. But Kent wants to basically get with their inspectors to find out if there's any other items that they feel are priority to getting repaired. Most of the items they've had on the NDOT's inspection in the past have been pretty minor. If you read their reports, you need a translator to figure out what the codes mean, but it mostly comes down to they're pretty minor. Painting and rust was a common one. And we're in pretty good shape. Sort of through the back door with Ann Bolger with Carson City Open Space, we were talking about rights of way in the canyon, and it came up to the point that the Carson City assessor has never updated their assessment maps to reflect the rights of way that the commission owns in fee from Eastgate down on through the canyon. Basically, all of the transportation right-of-way grants we received from the BLM are now owned by the commission by virtue of the 2010 Lands Act. Before that got finalized with Carson City, the BLM contacted us and said, do you want to go ahead and have this as a temporary right-of-way grant like they all are, being administered by Carson City, or do you want to have these rights of way in perpetuity? And I said for the latter. They initially said there was going to be a charge, but we have never seen one. So there's a number of different parcels that are not easements that the commission actually owns down in the canyon, including the primary, not the expansion, but the primary Eastgate Depot site. That property is actually owned by the commission. And so the assessor, it's probably time to get that cleaned up, that it reflects those ownerships. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of work with them, give them a CAD drawing, sounds like what they want to get that actual ownership status squared away. In between those rights-of-way grant, we have easements. Again, we've got easements all the way down the canyon up to the easterly boundary of what was formerly the Bertinoli gravel extraction operation. So just need some money and we can build some track down there, we think. That was about it for now, so I think we're good. Any questions?
That culvert you talked about, are you talking about doing that after the season?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Ken, what was the distance of extending the track going down the canyon?
Basically, we have right-of-way for approximately, I think it's 2.6 miles from the current end of track into the canyon. Would we actually build all the way up to that eastern boundary of the old Bertinoli parcel? Probably not. We'd be quarter mile short of that. So 2.2, 2.4 miles. We have right-of-way to be able to build a balloon track down there. But my initial, if we ever got funding, I'd say let's hold off on that balloon track because that basically take a train down, turn it, and come back up. But there's no turning facilities either at Eastgate or Virginia City to be able to turn an engine at this point. At some point there may be, but my thinking was if we could get the funding for that is just put a regular siding similar to Eureka. Train would go down, take the passenger cars down and then run around those passenger cars and come back up the hill. But about a little over 2 miles, 2.2 miles, 2.3 miles of we could build on pretty much right away. Actually, in anticipation, way back in 2008, after the presidential elections, before the 2009 inauguration, we heard rumors of this ARA program. And so we were actually able to fund the 1.1 mile extension from Eastgate down to Eureka using those American Recovery and Restoration Act, ARR funds. And so that we actually had money for that. We thought we could get additional funding to go down in the canyon under that program, but we didn't have the right of way. We had the environmental assessment complete. We accelerated the state of the plans to be able to get a project out to bid. We were literally at 90% level, construction level, when we received authorization, we could build the first portion of it. But again, had we had that additional 2 miles of right of way or anything, we could have built further down the canyon at that point, but it just didn't happen. So we have pretty well a good set of plans. They have to be updated. They're 10 years old. But we're in pretty good shape to move down that canyon funding allowable. There's the first quarter mile or so is pretty simple, minor grading. Once you get past that quarter mile, then you start getting into some much heavier roadbed reconstruction items.
So any estimate as to what the cost would be?
It's hadn't been updated for a while, but it's roughly $6 million for that. You know, it's a little more than $3 million a mile. Again, there's some retaining walls and culverts, and of course we got to purchase the rail and the ties. We have a little bit of rail left over, about enough to do, and I wouldn't recommend using in the canyon, but we have about 750 track foot of rail on hand. That doesn't include any of the hardware or ties or anything else, but so we'd need to purchase rail also to go down that. It'd be a complete project to go down in the canyon to any extent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, no other comment, then we'll move on to agenda number 13. This will be for discussion only, attorney's report. Mr. Rowe.
Denny, it's actually been very quiet, other than working with Elaine on the agenda and the minutes. Up until our discussion about a track use policy, there hadn't been any other projects or tasks that have come my way, so I don't have anything to tell you.
So other than you've been enjoying the granddaughter then?
Grandson.
Grandson, yes, grandkids. Yeah, good. Okay, any questions for Mike? The commission? No? Okay. Move on to agenda number 14 for discussion only. The next meeting dates and agenda items. Looks like we're set for June 27th at 1 p.m. back here in the Sierra Room. Does that sound right, Elaine?
I'd like to address that, speaking of grandkids. We're going to be out of state on the 27th. Can we move it up a week?
Let's just check.
I don't know that we can get this room that big.
I can't make that.
I would be tied up as well on the 20th. Elaine, how much do we have on the, do you foresee us having on the agenda for the 27th?
Well, it'll be the month that we pass the duties forward. And of course, we're going to want to recognize a few people. So I'd like to have the meeting. Is it possible to maybe get one of the attorneys from Story County just to sit in for that particular meeting?
I think their plate's pretty full. I wouldn't want to be the one to ask, but I have a commissioner over here to my right that might be able to ask, but yeah, I don't know.
The alternative is I could call in and participate telephonically. If
That
we
would
can't
work.
move it.
If that'll work with you, Mike, that's
Sure.
okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we'll try and keep it somewhat limited agenda items then.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with that. Keep it on the same date. Okay, then, with that, no other comments from the public on that? No? Okay, we'll move on to number 15, commissioner comments for today. I'll start with Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure. This is my first real board meeting. I've met with you guys a couple of times in the past, and I'm honored to sit on the board with you. And I see good things going forward. We got a great staff, and I think we have a strong board, and I think that's what this commission needs. So, thank you.
Stan.
I'd just like to review some of the accomplishments that we have done this year. We started out with replacing the holding tank, which was our big nemesis originally. We replaced toilets and leaky faucets to try to correct all that problem. We've done the parking lot and added an overflow parking lot, striped it. We bought 2 containers, got them in place. Installed a security system with cameras. We've got a great marketing plan going. We've accomplished a lot. And Elaine, you get all the credit for it. You really do. And I appreciate the board like you, Marshall. I think we have a good board, and I'm looking forward to next year. Thank you.
Mike?
I'd like to thank the marketing efforts that we've had lately. Our Wednesday conference calls that we've had have been very informative. I think we're all working well together. If there's changes that need to be made, they're being made, and it's just been a pleasure to see how it's evolved. And the product speaks for itself. I think it's great. Also, I'd like to thank Tom for being here and giving us an update. And I would like to invite myself to come up there eventually and see your operation, Tom. I haven't had the pleasure of doing that, so I'd like to coordinate that with Elaine and you to try to get up there and see how all this works. So thank you guys for all the hard work that you do, and I look forward to working with this great commission as well. Thank you.
Great. The only thing I have to say really is that tomorrow I'm putting on a pair of boots, grabbing some gloves, emptying out a container. I had the Story County mechanics are making sure it's roadworthy, and hopefully by next week you'll have another area to store some stuff down there. So make room, it's coming. That's all I've got. With that, we are adjourned. Thanks, folks.